Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Saturday morning sit down.
Welcome back to the show. Glenn and Neil with you up until noon today. Joining us in the studio now, His Excellency Nikesh Mehta, the British High Commissioner to Singapore. Good morning and welcome to Money FM.
Good morning, Glenn. It's lovely to be here with you.
Great to have you with us. And you've just been in town for 6 months or so, been working very hard already. Give us the state of the UK-Singapore relationship. We know it's strong, we know it's long and deep, but tell us from your perspective what it's looking like.
I think it's in really, really good shape, and my predecessor, Cara, did a fantastic job of laying the foundations for a modern relationship. Of course, we've got that shared history going back 60 years plus, and it's provided a great basis for us to work from. But actually, I'm focused on what the modern relationship looks like, a relationship that's got trade and investment at its heart. But we're also working on climate change together, on science and innovation and technology, and of course education. And you had my colleague Lissy on earlier. And there isn't a single area, I think, of modern diplomacy that Singapore and the UK don't work together on.
Were you shocked? You mentioned off-air that since you've arrived, it's been a whirlwind, 7 days a week job. That the UK, I suppose the UK-Singapore relationship is close, but the extent, the tentacles, I mean, never mind soft power, but the business community, the investments here, the number of British companies here, the British education systems here, and of course the universities that Singaporean students go to. I bet even you were surprised when you arrived here.
Neil, I'm totally surprised. The depth and the breadth of the relationship was a shock to me, and it says a lot about the quality of the staff that we've got in the High Commission who work across all of these areas. But we're fortunate because, you know, of all the Singaporean students that go overseas, 40% of them go to the UK to study. Half the Singaporean cabinet is UK educated. So that history is there. My job is to drive that even further forward. And it's not just education and all these other areas. It's also some of our soft power. And from the Premier League to Paddington, you know, there's a real bond between our two countries.
Wonderful.
When you look at things like, you know, security and, you know, this is a very VUCA world that we live in today with all the crazy things happening around. What do those linkages look like between Singapore and the UK from the security standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Glenn. I think that we're in a period of huge volatility, perhaps the most contested, contentious, fragile period in decades. And you need countries, I think, that want to work together to solve the difficult challenges that we face in the world, whether that's Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine or the tension in the Middle East. You know, countries like Singapore and the UK, together with other partners, I think working together to help address them is more important than ever. And, you know, I would say this, of course, but I don't think diplomacy has ever been needed more than it is right now.
No, or diversity. The obvious counter to populism, unfortunately, geopolitical experts, political commentators, myself, I think 2025 is going to be a big year for the rise of populism, xenophobia, these kind of issues around the world. And here we have the first British-Indian ambassador, High Commissioner to Singapore. I know that diversity is a huge part of your portfolio and something that you've brought into diplomatic relations in Singapore. Tell us about that, your journey, and also why the element of diversity is so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting in one of the most multicultural city-states in the world, and I'm also proud of the UK's history on race and multiculturalism, and proud to be a British diplomat of Indian ethnicity. It matters to me because of some of the conversations you've had earlier around diversity of thought. As we begin to tackle some of the really, really difficult issues that our society faces, whether that's on climate change or it's on some of the security challenges that we've described, you need people that bring different perspectives and can think differently about those challenges. And that comes from the multicultural experiences that people have, and also a global education that you've talked about earlier. So, you know, when I joined our foreign service, there really weren't many people that looked like me, that came from my background, and I hope that I can create a path that will enable people from other minorities to see themselves in these sorts of roles.
We're on with His Excellency Nikesh Mehta, the British High Commissioner to Singapore. You had spoke when you first came on about the groundwork that had been laid for you by your predecessors in this relationship in Singapore at this time and place. Talk a little bit more about that. What kind of groundwork was there for you? What did the playing field look like when you arrived 6 months ago?
Yeah, well, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a free trade agreement between the UK and Singapore, a strategic partnership that was signed by the then Prime Ministers in September 2023, a digital economy agreement, a green economy framework. These two, the latter two, were the first of their kind for the UK. These agreements...
Really, anywhere in the world?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, there have been ones that have been replicated elsewhere. So these are things that we can really build from. And part of the job that my team and I have over the next year is to turn these fantastic agreements into operational outcomes for businesses here. And Neil, you spoke about the business presence here. We have 6,000 British businesses and entities based in Singapore. But I want to use digital economy agreement, for example, to digitalise trade between the UK and Singapore and deliver frictionless transactions. And we want to use the green economy framework to ensure that we're supporting each other's clean energy transition. So these foundations are absolutely fantastic. It's up to us to take them forward.
And you also have the soft power advantages of common language, law, politics, education, and so on. And when I was talking to Max off-air about Erling Haaland, signing this blockbuster 10-year deal, English Premier League has an office here. Many British soft power exercises in Singapore, football, music, that kind of thing. And that's something you're going to tap into as well. Absolutely.
I think soft power is one of our great strengths, and the Foreign Secretary launched the UK Soft Power Council yesterday with members from arts and culture and music and sport and entertainment coming together to help us to leverage that more effectively. But you can't say Erling Haaland and not expect me to say that my team are top of the league at the moment and riding high. And
you can't expect me to say you're not from Liverpool.
Touché. But my dad, when he came over to the UK as an economic migrant from Kenya, spent a lot of his student days in the Northwest. So that's that's the little connection.
That's
there.
your connection, huh?
The Scouse accent really isn't coming through right now.
I believe you grew up in the south of England, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Northwest London. That bastion.
So it should be Tottenham or Arsenal, shouldn't it, really? But okay.
You got to support a team that wins things.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, coming back to the point. So, soft power, what can we expect in this year now? SG60, 60th anniversary of course, diplomatic relations between the UK and Singapore. Lots of things planned from the Singapore perspective to acknowledge SG60. What about from your side?
Yeah, it is a crucial year for the bilateral relationship. And of course, we were the first country to recognise Singapore's independence on the 9th of August 1965. And this year is about creating those really special moments that demonstrate both the historic bond, but also what we want to achieve together. And we started earlier this week with the Paddington premiere. And if you haven't seen it already, please go and see it. What a fantastic...
Paddington in Peru.
Paddington in Peru, a great example of British creativity and Peruvian arts and culture. But the flagship event that we've got coming up in March is one that I really am excited about. And on the 8th of March, we've got something called Great in the Gardens taking place at the Singapore Botanic Gardens. And between 5:30 and 7 p.m, you can listen to a free concert that will bring a brilliant orchestra, that has a brilliant orchestra playing everything from British classical music all the way through to some modern stuff.
Nice.
I promise you there'll be a bit of Bond in there as well.
Okay, we would expect.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and we hope that.
Is that down at the band shell? That's down in
the symphony stage, and we want it to be like proms in the park. We want people to bring their picnic blankets, their strawberries, their scones, and come down and celebrate a bit of British culture with us.
Palm comes in the park with humidity.
Yes, exactly. And hopefully no rain. That's
It'll be gone by then.
Yeah, so,
the northwest monsoon or the northeast monsoon will be gone.
Yeah, it'll be gone by then. On the point of soft power, last Saturday I forgot that I was supposed to be accompanying my daughter to Marina Bay Sands, which I did for a university fair. Yeah. And there were Australian universities there, and there were many UK universities there, obviously, as you would expect. But even now, I'm still struck by the way, almost like a tractor beam, Singaporean parents are instinctively drawn towards the UK universities. I'll be honest, they had the longest queues, they had the most people, many universities there. Still a very strong educational bond between the two countries, isn't there?
I think it's the golden thread that links the UK and Singapore and Malaysia and many other parts of this world together. I really honestly believe that. And we shouldn't be complacent about it, and we should continue to do what we can to attract students to not just Oxford and Cambridge and London universities, but actually to the breadth of education that we have, from Scotland through to Northern Ireland and some brilliant Welsh universities. And I'm so pleased to hear, Neil, that there were long queues. Our job, working with the British Council, is to make sure that we continue to attract the very best Singaporean students to go to the UK.
Wonderful.
What's it like to be the new kid on the diplomatic block in Singapore? The fresh face among many others who have been here for years or even many years in some cases. What is that transition like? As a diplomat, you've done this before. You've gone to different countries over the course of your career. How do you fit in? How do you, join the group, let's put it that way, of your diplomatic colleagues? Yeah,
Glenn, it's such a great question because, you are instinctively nervous when you arrive somewhere and you take on a role like this. But the diplomatic community has been so welcoming, from my colleagues in the Five Eyes to, my European friends and those beyond in the Commonwealth. Everyone has been incredibly welcoming, and it says something about the great relationship that Cara had with the community that they've welcomed me with open arms. But I've also got a brilliant mission with fantastic diplomats, together with our wonderful wonderful country-based staff to work with. And they've made that transition a lot smoother than it might have been otherwise. So, the job is seriously demanding, but I'm loving every single minute of it.
Yeah. And the challenge every diplomat faces, if I'm not mistaken, is, sometimes you have to represent policies and certain elements of the country that you may not personally believe or personally are in favor of. Over the decades that you've been a diplomat, how do you manage that tension, I guess, internally with maybe some of the things you have to do?
Well, of course, in our system, you follow the direction set by the government, and that is a key tenet of our civil service and of our diplomatic service. So, I will always do my best to represent those views. But there will be times, of course, where you don't personally agree with the direction set by a government. And there are ways in which you can voice those concerns, and you can, if you feel really strongly, asked to be moved to a different portfolio. But you can imagine, in a career that started in Iraq just after the war, that there have been moments where I've felt personally conflicted about some of government policy, but I've really respected the fact that there have always been avenues to raise those concerns, to talk about them, to help me better understand why we're doing something. And I'm genuinely a diplomat for the UK government because I feel I believe in public service, and I believe in the UK's values and what we want to try and do in the world, and I think that really matters.
And it's been an extraordinary public service. You've been posted to Iraq, Uganda, Malaysia, South Korea, and I will ask you about Blackpink in South Korea, so make sure I don't forget that. It's very important.
I can't have a single conversation without Blackpink.
I am going to come to Blackpink before the end. But what I want to get to is, you had a very poignant posting, I would say, in Uganda, because your mother, our listeners won't be aware, your mother was a Ugandan Asian who was expelled from the country by Idi Amin's forces in the 1970s. And then fast forward, her son goes back. What must that have been like for you? Extraordinary.
It was extraordinary is exactly the right word. I mean, my mum was forced to leave at gunpoint, literally at gunpoint, and the UK took her and her wider family in, gave them a home. She grew up in the northeast, actually, in Newcastle, and she's got a real affinity to that part of the world. But at a time when actually racism in the UK was a real problem. But she's got nothing but admiration for the country. But then to be posted back there and to meet members of the Ugandan government who were around or connected to that period was extraordinary. And my grandmother came back as well, in her late 80s, and we took her to the small village on the border of Uganda, Tanzania, and the Congo, where she grew up. To go and see her village there. It was
fantastic.
It was incredible. But I think that's the beauty of the world that we live in. It's a lot smaller than perhaps it was 30 or 40 years ago.
And perhaps in many ways they were lucky to have gotten out of Idi Amin's time and place, right?
Yeah, I think
despite
so.
how turbulent that must have been for the family, they probably did better being in the UK than staying in Uganda.
Yeah, they were able to build a life for themselves, which it would have been very, very difficult, I think, back then.
Up till now, you've had that experience in Malaysia. You know Southeast Asia somewhat. How is the perspective that you have of Southeast Asia different from sitting here in the red dot than it might have been in KL years ago?
It is naturally quite different, and some of the challenges that we were dealing with during the time I was in Malaysia are very different. And my job was quite different then. It was the period when we had the two Malaysia airline disasters, MH370 and 17.
Horrible.
And the latter plane had 10 UK nationals on board. So I spent quite a lot of time on both of those issues. But it was also a time of trying to rebuild the relationship between the UK and Malaysia. Whereas here in Singapore, the relationship has got such strong footing that it's about what we can do to modernise it and to look for other avenues of productivity.
Right. Never mind Taylor Swift and her 6 or 7 nights, whatever it was.
Here we go.
Exactly.
Here we go.
You, my friend, negotiated not just an agreement with Blackpink, arguably one of the biggest bands in the world, certainly in South Korea, but you got them to a relationship or an agreement between the British government and Blackpink on climate action. What did it look like, and how did you do it?
I mean, I'm telling you the story,
yes,
but actually the hard work that went behind it was all done by a brilliant embassy in Seoul. I mean, the short version is that we came up with the idea of wanting to work with a popular Korean personality to raise the profile of climate change around the world. And initially, we wanted to do it with Son Heung-min.
Yep, I met him last year.
Yeah, this iconic figure. But with COVID just kicking off and access to Son being quite tricky, we set our sights on personalities back at home in Korea. And somebody in our local team there said, I can get you in to see the managing director of Blackpink. What do you think? And so we spent 3 weeks prepping. It was like a Dragon's Den style pitch to him. And the genesis of it was, we knew the girls were interested in climate change and on nature issues. So our pitch was, in this monumental year for climate change, we'd like to work with you to help young people's perspective around the world on climate change, to raise the profile of it. And they came on board pretty quickly. But over the next 2 years or so, we worked very closely with them on producing content that would capture the imagination with brilliant hashtags. I think we were at 120 million views for some of our climate content. Wow. And in the year of COP26, only a tweet by Greta Thunberg was more impactful than the stuff that our plucky embassy had done with them. But it was down to the ingenuity of the team and the willingness of the the girls to want to work with us.
Well, you know what I'm
That's
going to say? Coldplay are British. They're big in Singapore. They do carbon neutral gigs.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm sure they're coming back to Singapore at some point.
Well, if anyone knows Benny Keng, I want to work with him as well. Apparently he's the personality that we've got to connect with.
Brilliant.
I had a chance to meet your embassy staff, some of them, in about maybe 2016 or so. I was in Korea, South Korea, in Seoul, and some friends took me to the pub, the British pub, the most brilliant British pub in the basement of the embassy, of the British embassy in Seoul.
These are diplomatic tools, Glenn. They're not
They're not for public consumption.
Well, my black and tan was for public consumption that night. My many black and tans, actually, and it was what a wonderful evening. But it just blew me away that was even possible. I don't know if they still open it up to the public or not.
They still do. I mean, it's open. I think it's open on Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night. That's when we went.
And it's not every night. I hasten to add.
Right.
But it's a great place to be able to bring people together socially and to give them a slice of Britain in the centre of the city.
They don't allow the lagerlouts in, but other than that, anyone can go and have a
I'm not allowed in.
Let's go to now. You, Singapore, personal side of things. You've made some changes around Eden House, the residence here. Tell us about that with food and with renovations. What's going on?
We're very, very fortunate to have a house that's 120 years old in the centre of Singapore as the High Commissioner's residence, and we sweat that asset. And the team at Eden Hall will tell you how hard it's worked. But I wanted to have the residents kind of reflect my own values and cultural upbringing. So we run it as a vegetarian residence. So any event that I sponsor or that the High Commission is responsible for, we will host as a vegetarian one. And we have the most incredible chef that's sort of embraced the opportunity to do this, and is so creative. I mean, if you've ever been to the residence and tried our nasi lemak arancini balls that are coloured in pandan green, they are so spectacular. We're going to have you over, Glenn.
Yeah, please. I'd love to.
The house is being renovated at the moment, but it will reopen in mid-March with a big bang. But it's a brilliant place to bring people together, I think.
Yeah. When you first arrived at Eden Hall, I mean, this is a very personal question. Did you ever have a pinch me moment? You know, the kid of immigrant parents to the UK, refugees to the UK, and here you are in this wonderful residence, the first British Indian High Commissioner to Singapore. Do you have those pinch me moments? Do you allow yourself those moments?
I have pinch me moments every day. You know, Neil, when I grew up in Neasden, a part of inner London, a pretty rough part of the city, there were something like 15 or 16 of us living in one house. All four of my mum and dad and my brother and me, we lived in one bedroom of a house that had all my extended family in there. And it's been quite a journey to get to live in a place like Eden Hall, but it's we try and do it with as much humility as we can, and recognise that the residence is for the British community. It's a place for us to bring the community together with stakeholders who will hopefully take our relationship further. But I try and be as humble as I can about that. But it is, I mean, it's a wonderful place to live, for sure.
You've been so generous with your time, and you do have to go off to other events today, so we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to finish with our lightning round.
Yep.
We've got several different questions. Neil and I are going to go back and forth with you. First question, what is your favorite thing to do when you have a little bit of time off around Singapore, not just sitting at home? Where do you go? What do you do?
I love nature. And actually, we took a year pass of Mandai reserves. So I think we are probably the most frequent visitors to the night safari into the zoo. I love getting out and seeing Singapore's wildlife. I haven't seen any otters, so I'm not convinced they exist yet, because I'm the anti-otter police.
They're around.
But that's that. Yeah, I love getting out.
Favourite food and where in Singapore?
Yeah, two. If it's the Hawker, I really like Satay by the Bay because they've got some vegetarian food. And we discovered this brilliant restaurant called Gourmet Park in Kampong Bugis that does veggie burgers, and Caribbean food. So if anyone's looking for a brilliant recommendation,
that's
I love
that's
that
Ken
place.
and Sophia's place.
We've been on our show. They're the people behind the Impossible Burger stalls.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Good Burger.
That's them.
Yeah,
Same family.
They are
And
brilliant.
Carnaby Street down at
Is also there.
Robertson Key is
Yes,
there.
we haven't been there yet, but that's on our list.
Glenn and I
for
went to the launch. Very
Yeah.
good British-themed restaurant.
Didn't invite me, I take.
Had them on the show. Well,
Next
you
time.
can't get on every list.
Well, I'm not going to bring up the Paddington thing. But,
Okay, and finally, favorite landmark, historic or even modern landmark in Singapore that you like to go and see or tell people about or show people?
Yeah, I love the Esplanade. Every time I drive past there, and look at the design of that building, my heart kind of flutters a bit. And Gardens by the Bay, of course, I think is spectacular. And it seems like many cities around the world are trying to do their equivalent of it. But I think what ingenuity to come up with that attraction.
right, last question. Political, controversial, red question. Almost half the country is Liverpool. The other half is Manchester United. So
Manchester who?
exactly,
Sorry,
them.
yeah,
Manchester
yeah.
who? Can and will Liverpool win the English Premier League title this season?
Yes. I mean, the question is whether they can do the quadruple. That's where that's all
all 4 trophies, folks.
No, I think this is it has to be our season, but my God, it's going to be difficult. And we start, again this evening with Brentford.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for your time today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I love chatting to
Great
both of you.
to have you with us. His Excellency Nick Mehta, the British High Commissioner to Singapore. Please come back and see us again.
I will, of course. Cheers, guys.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.